Welcome back. Find a comfortable position and let your body get heavy. Take a slow breath in and let it out. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. Tonight, I have 5 stories for you. Let them wash over you. You don't need to follow along closely. Just let the words carry you. Let's begin. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind of day that made everything feel a little cozier. I remember sitting in the kitchen, the air thick with the comforting scent of warm bread baking in the oven, mingling ever so gently with the faintest whiff of stewed apples simmering on the stove. Raindrops danced against the glass window, creating a rhythmic patter that matched the soft hum of the ceiling fan above. I could see the world outside, blurry and glistening, as if everything had been dipped in silver. The soft golden light spilling from the pendant lamp above wrapped the room in a warm embrace, making it feel like a little sanctuary from the weather beyond. There, at the table, I found an old journal, pages slightly worn and edges frayed. It was a time capsule of sorts, filled with bits and pieces of my life, a cozy quilt of memories. Flipping it open, I was greeted by doodles and notes that seemed to span lifetimes, but one piece of writing stood out. It was a letter I had written to my younger self, a gentle reminder that filled me with nostalgia. In that moment, I could almost hear the laughter of my younger self, the lightness of childhood echoing in my mind. I remembered the day I had misunderstood the plan for a family gathering, thinking we were having a picnic in the park, while my parents had simply suggested a stay-at-home dinner. I had spent the whole morning baking cookies, flour dusting the floor in my face, the sweet dough sticking to my fingers, and I had imagined the look of joy when everyone would taste my creation. As I mixed the dough, the sunlight filtering through the clouds outside had created a soft glow, casting a beautiful light across the kitchen. The humor in my misunderstanding tugged a smile from my lips, fondness washing over me like a warm wave. I could picture that day vividly, my excitement bubbling over, my heart full of anticipation, and the innocent certainty that I had everything figured out. Later that afternoon, when my parents arrived home, I had laid out the cookies with great pride, only to be met with puzzled looks. "Did we forget something?" my father asked with a gentle chuckle. My mother exchanged a glance with him, smiling softly as she explained that there wouldn't be a picnic after all. But that didn't mean the cookies wouldn't be appreciated. I remember the warmth flooding my cheeks as I gathered the cookies, feeling a bit deflated. I had been so certain, so ready for a gathering under the big oak tree at the park, the sun shining down while we shared my homemade treats. Instead, we transformed our living room into an improvised picnic site. Chairs pulled close, cushions stacked high. We made ourselves comfortable on the floor with plaid blankets and snacks surrounding us. As I recalled that day now, I couldn't help but laugh at my earnest little self. Responsibilities and expectations felt distant, but that day was woven into my heart, a reminder that laughter is found in misunderstandings, and joy can flourish even in unexpected places. The cookies, of course, had turned out delicious, a small triumph amidst the chaos. My parents had met my eagerness with kindness, and I realized that what mattered most wasn't the picnic or the perfectly laid plan, but the moments spent together. As we sat around, my father sharing silly stories that made us giggle until we rolled on the floor, I felt a warmth enveloping me. It was the warmth of family, connection, and love that filled the air. Even now, I could hear my younger self's laughter ringing in my ears. It was a soft, unassuming sound, a little squeak of joy that danced through the room. As I reminisced, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over me for that simpler time when life felt like a series of delightful surprises. Lost in that daydream, I decided to write a letter to my younger self, one that would remind her of the beauty to be found in little mistakes and unexpected turns. With delicate strokes, I wrote of that day, the emotional turbulence of the misunderstanding, the chaos that ensued, and how everything had turned out just fine. I wanted to tell her that life would throw curveballs, but those moments would glitter with joy if she only took a breath and soaked them in. I could picture her, wide-eyed and full of energy, clutching that letter close, absorbing those words of wisdom. It made me smile to think of how she would react, her brows furrowing in concentration as she read my thoughts, then bursting into giggles at the memory of flour-covered faces and crumbs on the carpet. I could almost see her giving me a knowing nod, her childlike confidence reassuring me that she would cherish those memories long after I had left her side. The rain continued to fall softly outside, a soothing backdrop to my reflections. Each drop seemed to whisper a reminder of the simplicity in life. The way it ebbs and flows like the rain, sometimes heavy, sometimes light, but always there, nurturing the earth below. I leaned back in my chair, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace settle around me like a warm blanket. As I finished writing, I took a deep breath, letting the moment linger, the smell of freshly baked bread wafting in from the oven. I realized that kindness is often found in the spaces between words, in the shared laughter that warms even the coldest of days. And so, I folded the letter, tucking it safely into an envelope with a little heart doodled on the front. It felt like a message in a bottle, a whisper of love that I would send back through time, connecting us in a gentle embrace. The world outside may have been dulled by rain, but inside, there was a glow, a warmth that transformed everything. In that moment, I felt a stillness enveloping me, a gentle reminder that all would be well. The rain danced on the roof, matching the rhythm of my heart. I knew that life would continue to unfold in its beautiful, unpredictable way, guiding me toward unexpected picnics and heartwarming gatherings. With the light dimming in the kitchen and the smell of bread filling the air, I realized it was time to close that chapter for the day. The laughter, the warmth, and the little misunderstandings were tucked safely in my heart. A reminder that love is simple, beautiful, and often wrapped in moments that don't go as planned. As I rose from the table, the journal still open, I moved toward the window. Outside, the rain had quieted, and a soft twilight settled over the world, casting a tranquil hue over everything. I took a moment to breathe it all in, that stillness settling around me like the softest of blankets. And so, I returned to my chair, closed my eyes, and let that warm feeling of gratitude wash over me, thanking my younger self for the laughter, the cookies, and the memories that would forever warm my heart. The world felt soft, the raindrops slowly fading, and I gently drifted into a quiet, peaceful sleep, leaving behind a moment that would always remind me of the beauty of human connection. The lamp flickered softly, and I felt the blanket of night wrapping around me, a heart at rest. Here's another story to drift off to. I remember the late afternoon sun streaming through the large windows of the office, the light casting gentle patterns across the desks and the walls, making everything shimmer. It was a Wednesday, and the air thickened with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, mingled with the faint aroma of the lemon-scented cleaner that the janitor swiped across the floors each evening. The break room, where I often found refuge, was cluttered with a half-eaten box of pastries, the kind that had become a reliable fixture in our little workplace, brought in as if by some unspoken agreement. Everyone seemed to rally around them, sharing everything from mild gossip to the newest Netflix recommendations, while laughter danced through the air like fragile balloons. That particular day, I could hear the gentle hum of conversations flowing through the office. The sound felt comforting, like a warm blanket on a chilly evening. I stood at the counter, idly stirring my coffee, savoring the way the rich, dark liquid began to cool, the rim of the mug warm against my palms. It was a moment of stillness, one I often cherished amid the soft chaos of office life. I took a sip, careful this time not to burn my tongue, and gazed out the window, where the leaves on the trees swayed lazily, as if beckoning me to join their slow dance. But even in that moment of peace, I could sense the undercurrents of anxiety. They often floated around the office like wisps of fog, mostly harmless yet sometimes heavy. Carrie, my colleague who sat a few desks over, was in the midst of preparing for a presentation, that had begun to loom larger in her mind than it really was. I noticed her biting her lip, a habit she had adopted when she was deep in thought. Each time she glanced at her notes, pages filled with colorful highlights and post-it notes, her brow furrowed slightly, as if she were wrestling with invisible giants. We had only recently bonded over our shared love of old movies and coffee breaks laden with discussions that meandered into the reflective corners of our lives. I remembered how we had laughed last week about a particularly melodramatic scene from a classic romance. We had spent a good half hour trying to mimic the grand gestures of the actors, both of us dissolving into giggles at how silly we must have looked. And yet, here she was, her playful spirit shrouded in a haze of worry. As I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, I found myself pondering the best way to offer my support. There's a fine line sometimes, I thought, between offering help and being intrusive. I recalled the earlier days in my own career, those moments when I, too, felt that an impending deadline could swallow me whole. I remembered the small gestures that made a difference, like when someone gently reminded me to take a deep breath, or when another coworker brought in a slice of cake just to share a bit of joy. With this warmth in my heart, I quietly grabbed a muffin from the box and made my way to Carrie's desk. I find that food has a magical way of easing tension, and as I approached her, I noticed the faintest flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Hey, I thought you might want a little break," I said, my voice low and soft, as if I were handling a delicate flower. She looked at the muffin, then back at me, and the corners of her mouth lifted ever so slightly. "Oh, thank you. You're too kind," she replied, setting her notes aside. I could see the momentary relief wash over her, the weight of her worries slipping just a little. I sat down in the chair opposite her, and we began to chat, sharing stories about our weekends and plans for the upcoming holidays. I listened more than I spoke, noticing how her posture began to relax, the tension in her shoulders gradually easing as she shared a funny story about her dog chasing after a squirrel. Laughter bubbled between us, light and bright, filling the little space with a sense of camaraderie. It was fascinating how, in those gentle exchanges, the layers of anxiety peeled away like the skin of a fruit. Time seemed to elongate, allowing for pauses filled with comfortable silence. I savored those moments. They reminded me of how wonderful it can be to connect with someone, to offer a simple act of kindness in the midst of the bustling day. Before long, Carrie took a deep breath, and with it, I sensed a shift. "You know," she began, glancing at her notes, "I've been stressing about this presentation more than it deserves." Her voice was soft but steady, and I nodded, inviting her to share her thoughts. "It's just, I keep thinking it has to be perfect. But maybe it's enough to just share what I know." "Non. It is," I said, a smile in my voice. "You know your stuff, and the effort you've put in shows. Just think of it as a conversation. Just like this." "Nun." She laughed lightly, her laughter rippling through the air like a bell, making my heart warm. "You make it sound so easy." I really appreciate this. There was no need for grand gestures, I thought. Sometimes it's the little, everyday moments that offer the most reassurance. As the afternoon light began to fade, the golden hues shifted into a softer palette, and we wrapped up our conversation. I remember the calming feeling that filled the office as we both returned to our tasks, our worries wrapped in a little more light, a little more ease. Carrie smiled at me, and it was as if the warmth from the sun had settled within her. Days turned into weeks, and the rhythm of the office continued. The muffled chatter and laughter became familiar, a lullaby that soothed the spirit. Carrie flourished, her presentation a success, and I found pleasure in watching her confidence grow, her laughter ringing through the office like a joyous reminder of shared support. Each time I saw her, I could feel the depth of our connection. A tether formed in those small moments. I reflected on how the simplest of interactions, the ones that seemed to float by unnoticed, could build a sense of belonging. They were like stepping stones across a river, each one strengthening the bond we shared as coworkers, as friends. And just outside the office, the seasons changed. The trees once again transformed, blooming into shades of green and gold, and I marveled at the beauty of it all. Eventually, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the world outside whispered of stillness. The soft glow of the desk lamp illuminated the pages of my notes, and I paused, soaking in the tranquility of the moment, letting the warmth wash over me. I closed my eyes for just a heartbeat, appreciating the gentle cadence of the office settling down for the evening. The sounds of chairs creaking, the rustle of papers being put away, and the faint hum of distant laughter were all part of the comforting backdrop. In that softly lit room, I felt grateful, not just for the day and the connections made, but for the gentleness of life that reminded me we are all tied together. Every quiet moment shared, every small kindness offered, formed a tapestry of support that enveloped us all. And as I sat there, reassured that everything would be just fine, I stole one last glance around the room, letting the peace settle into my bones before heading out, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow might bring. As I made my way home that night, I couldn't help but smile at the soft serendipity of it all, feeling as if each step was a calm promise that, indeed, things would unfold just as they were meant to. Take a deep breath, and let's move on to the next one. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the neighborhood as I walked home from the little cafe where I often found solace. It was one of those perfect autumn afternoons, where the air was crisp, and leaves danced gracefully down from their branches. I inhaled deeply, and the scent of damp earth mixed with the sweet hint of caramel from the cafe clung to the air like a gentle embrace. Every now and then, a faint rustle reminded me of the squirrels, busily preparing for winter, their tiny legs darting around as they collected acorns and leaves. I strolled along the familiar path, each step accompanied by the crunch of fallen leaves beneath my sneakers. The houses, with their carved pumpkins sitting cheerfully on doorsteps, looked like they had stepped out of a postcard. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, and I noticed the way the sunlight glinted off the windows, creating little shards of light that flickered like fireflies. It was a glorious evening, and there was something about it that made everything feel right, uncomplicated, and peaceful. As I turned the corner onto Maple Street, I noticed a small gathering of children playing in the park. Their laughter echoed softly, a melodic sound that fluttered through the air, mingling with the rustling leaves above. I paused for a moment, watching as they chased one another in a game of tag, their joy spilling over into the fading sunlight. I smiled to myself, feeling a warmth spread within me, a reminder of simpler times when the world was just as carefree. Eventually, I continued on my way, rounding the last bend toward my quiet home. I loved this part of my walk the most. The way the trees lined the street began to create a tunnel of vibrant reds and oranges, their branches arching gracefully overhead. It felt like a natural canopy, a secret world only I shared. As I approached my driveway, I noticed an unusual sight. An old, rusted bicycle leaned against the fence, its once shiny frame now dull and forgotten. It seemed out of place, like the remnants of a story waiting to be told. Just as I was about to move past it, an older gentleman, perhaps in his late 60s, shuffled into view, holding a small, crumpled piece of paper. His face was gentle, framed by tufts of soft white hair that danced around his warm, kind eyes. There was something disarming about him, a quietness in his demeanor that made everything feel just a little slower. "Excuse me," he called out softly, his voice soothing like a warm breeze. "I'm trying to figure out how to fix this old thing." He gestured toward the bicycle, and I stepped closer, curiosity guiding my feet. I hadn't seen anyone ride a bike in our neighborhood for years, especially not one like this. "It looks like it could use a little love," I replied, smiling at him. "What seems to be the trouble?" He chuckled lightly, the sound reminiscent of dried leaves rustling together. "Well, the brakes are a bit stubborn, and I can't seem to get the chain to stay in place. He unfolded the paper in his hand, revealing a series of scribbled notes that looked as if they'd been hastily written during a long afternoon. I thought I'd try to fix it myself, but I haven't the slightest clue what I'm doing. I admired the way he hadn't let the bike's age deter him. I used to fix bicycles when I was younger. Would you like a hand? I offered, surprised at my own eagerness to help. The man's face lit up as if the sun had just peeked out from behind a cloud, revealing a warmth that felt contagious. Oh, would you? That would be wonderful, he replied. My name is Walter, by the way. Nice to meet you, Walter. I'm Alex. We both settled down beside the old bicycle, and as I examined the rusty gears and creaky wheels, our conversation meandered like a river. Walter shared stories about the time he rode his bike across the countryside, his eyes sparkling with nostalgia. The way he spoke, every word felt like a gentle brush of kindness, revealing the heart of a man who still carried a sense of adventure deep within. Back in those days, the world felt much bigger, he said, a hint of wistfulness in his tone. I think I was searching for something, though I'm not sure what exactly. I chuckled softly at his honesty. I think we all are, in one way or another, I replied, tightening a loose screw with a small wrench. Sometimes it's just about discovering the small joys along the way. He nodded thoughtfully, his eyes glancing toward the horizon where the sun began to dip lower, painting the sky in a canvas of pastels. You know, it's funny. I came out here today to fix this bike, but I think I really needed someone to talk to, he admitted, a tender smile playing at the corners of his mouth. A warm ripple of connection settled between us, and I realized how quickly we had woven comfort into our conversation, as if we were old friends reminiscing. I shared snippets of my own life, the quirks of the neighborhood, and how the changing seasons always inspired me to seek beauty in the ordinary. Each moment felt like a gentle exchange, and I could sense that Walter felt it too. Time seemed to stand still, the world fading into a soft backdrop as we worked together. I tightened the chain, wiped grease off my hands, and even took the time to adjust the seat, making sure it was properly aligned. With each small task, I uncovered a sense of purpose I hadn't expected. Walter occasionally chuckled, a soft musical sound, as I fumbled with a particularly stubborn bolt or swatted away a curious fly. Sometimes we just need the right company to remind us how to keep moving forward, he said, a glimmer in his eyes as he placed a gentle hand on my arm. Thank you, Alex. This has been a wonderful afternoon. Now, as the light continued to wane, I stood back to admire our handiwork, a sense of accomplishment blossoming within me. There you go, Walter. I think you're ready for a little ride. He mounted the bike, his frame slightly hunched as he grasped the handlebars, a mix of excitement and nervousness dancing on his face. With a push, he was off, gliding down the sidewalk like a child discovering the joy of riding for the first time. I watched as he pedaled slowly, a grin spreading wider with each turn of the wheels. He waved back at me, and I felt a warmth spread through my heart, a silent acknowledgement of our brief connection. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting long shadows behind him, I made my way home. The coolness of the evening settling in. I felt lighter, somehow changed by the beautiful simplicity of our encounter and the unexpected kindness we had shared. The day's small act of generosity was a thread woven into my life's tapestry, a reminder that surprises linger in the heart of daily routines, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. When I unlocked my door and stepped inside, the familiar sense of home enveloped me. The faint aroma of chamomile lingering in the air, the soft flicker of a candle casting gentle light across the room. I made my way to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of tea, the warmth quickly seeping into my palms. I took a moment to breathe, to savor the peace that filled the space. Gratitude washed over me, for the little joys in life, and for those serendipitous moments that seemed to arrive just when needed. I settled into my favorite armchair, cocooned in a warm blanket, and let my thoughts drift to Walter and the bicycle, the laughter of children in the park, and the colors of the evening sky. As the candle flickered, the world outside grew quiet, and I felt my eyelids growing heavy, my breath deepening. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the calm embrace of the night, envisioning the gentle swaying of leaves and the soft, lingering laughter of an unexpected friend. The day had woven itself into a peaceful tapestry, and I surrendered to the quiet, letting the soft, comforting stillness of the evening envelop me fully. Here's another story to drift off to. I remember a late afternoon in early autumn, when the golden light filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the wooden porch of a small, quiet house. The smell of earth and dampness hung in the air, mingling with the sweet scent of ripe apples ripening in a nearby tree, their branches heavy with promise. I sat in a creaky wicker chair, the kind that always made a gentle groaning sound when you leaned back just a bit too far, wrapped in a soft, knitted blanket my grandmother had made. The sunlight was warm against my face, coaxing out the faintest smile as I closed my eyes and listened to the world around me. In the distance, I could hear the soft rustle of leaves as a slight breeze danced through the trees. Birds were chattering quietly, singing their melodies with a kind of relaxed urgency that seemed to suggest they too were easing into the evening. It was a good kind of quiet, where the small sounds of life blended together seamlessly, creating a cozy symphony of nature that felt like a warm hug. I could hear the jingle of a wind chime, its sweet, melodic notes creating ripples of sound that faded softly into the background. This was the place where I also occasionally found my friend, Clara. She was an artist whose strokes on canvas echoed the gentle cadence of the world around her. I can still picture her sitting cross-legged on the grass, her paintbrush poised almost delicately, like a butterfly perched on a flower. I would often sit nearby, wrapped in the warmth of the sun as I scrolled through pages of a worn-out novel, my heart feeling light and unburdened. The afternoons passed slowly, the time unfolding like the petals of a flower, as we shared quiet moments of laughter and slight mischief. Like the time we tried to paint the birdhouse in vibrant colors, which ended up looking more like a carnival than the cozy little home we had envisioned. Clara had a way of seeing the world that always fascinated me. She would point out the tiny details I often missed. The way the clouds drifted lazily across the sky, or how the light would catch the dew on the grass just before sunset, turning it into tiny diamonds. I was never good at expressing how much I admired her. Instead, I would nod quietly, pulling at the loose threads of my blanket, feeling both shy and oddly comforted by our shared silence. One particularly lovely day, as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, I remember Clara suggesting a walk through the nearby orchard. "Let's go find the best apples," she said with a small grin, her eyes sparkling like the sun reflecting gently off the surface of a tranquil pond. I chuckled softly, realizing that her enthusiasm, while gentle, carried an unexpected weight. "All right," I replied, unable to suppress my own grin. As we wandered between the rows of trees, Clara would occasionally pluck an apple from a branch, examining it with a gravity usually reserved for something much more profound. "This one looks promising," she would declare, handing it over to me, her voice laced with excitement. Each apple made its way from her hand to mine, the warmth of her touch lingering just a moment longer on my skin. An electric, unnoticed connection that I simply couldn't articulate. The orchard was alive with colors. Red, yellow, and green apples hung like ornaments on the branches, and the gentle rustle of leaves created a soothing backdrop to our easy conversation. We talked about everything and nothing, our words flowing in a way that felt beautifully natural, as if the world outside the orchard ceased to exist. I remember laughing at Clara's little stories about her quirky aunt, who made pies that were allegedly sprinkled with a secret spice that made them unbelievably scrumptious, yet always remained a mystery. We meandered deeper into the orchard until we stumbled upon a small clearing, an enclave of grass surrounded by the trees. It was as if the world had created a secret nook just for us. As we sat in that gentle space, the sun washed us in a soft golden hue, and for a fleeting moment, silence hung between us in a comforting embrace. I watched as Clara absent-mindedly traced shapes in the grass with her fingers, her brow slightly furrowed in thought. "Do you ever wonder," she began, her voice soft and contemplative, "what it would be like to just leave everything behind for a while?" The question lingered in the air, almost as if it were meant to drift off into the autumn breeze. I paused. There was something in her tone, a wistfulness that resonated with me. "I don't know," I replied, searching for words that felt just right. The way a comfortable sweater enfolds you on a chilly day. Sometimes I think it would be nice to find a place where everything is quiet and simple. Her eyes brightened at my words, and I caught a fleeting smile on her lips that felt like an unspoken agreement between us. We were both restless, dreamers, and perhaps in that very moment, we were dreaming the same dream. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow that wrapped us in a tender cocoon, I quietly reached over to touch her hand. It was small and warm, fingers curled slightly as if holding something precious. The intimacy of that moment settled around us like the fading light, and though I did not say it, I felt a surge of emotion, an unarticulated connection, a quiet understanding. We shared more afternoons in that orchard, wrapped in the comfort of our shared silences and soft laughter, each moment building like the layers of a painting. I found joy in the little things, in the way she would squint at the setting sun as it painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, or how she would bring the most unusual apple varieties to our gatherings, her face lighting up with each delightful discovery. Eventually, winter tiptoed in, transforming our world into a quiet wonderland. The orchard, once vibrant, became a landscape cloaked in white, trees standing tall yet still, like silent sentinels watching over us. Clara and I found ourselves transitioning from the sunlit warmth of the orchard to the cozy embrace of her living room, where we would sip steaming cups of cocoa, each mug cradled between our palms, the warmth seeping into our fingers. Some evenings, we would sit by the fireplace, the gentle crackle of wood intermingling with the soft sound of falling snow outside. As the world fell silent beneath the blanket of winter, we would share stories that spanned from our dreams and fears to the silly mishaps of our youth, weaving a tapestry of connection that felt increasingly intricate and cherished. But as enticing as the warmth was, there were still moments of hesitation, of wondering if I was brave enough to voice what lingered just beneath the surface. One evening, as we sat side by side on the floor, our backs leaning against the couch, I gathered the courage to ask her about her dreams, a gentle nudge into the depths of our hopes. "Clara," I ventured softly, "if you could do anything, anything at all, what would it be?" She was quiet for a moment, her gaze turned toward the flickering flames, eyes sparkling with fleeting thoughts. "I think I would want to travel," she mused, her voice almost a whisper, as if revealing a secret. "To find different landscapes, different people to meet, to gather stories like treasures." Her words struck a chord in me, and what followed was a conversation that felt tethered by unspoken sentiment, a delicate thread connecting our dreams. I smiled, sharing my own desires, heart swelling with the understanding that we were both searching for something just out of reach. Eventually, as the night deepened, the atmosphere shifted, and I found myself wanting to say more. I glanced at her, catching the warm glow of her laughter and the way her eyes twinkled with life. I felt a warmth pooling in my chest, but still, I hesitated, unsure of how to navigate the tender territory between friendship and something more. As winter unfolded, our friendship deepened, seamlessly woven into the fabric of our days. I remember one evening in early March, just before spring began to make its entrance, the air still chilled, but carrying a hint of warmth. Clara and I took a long walk, the moon hanging high above us, illuminating the world in a silver glow. The conversation flowed easily, but my heart felt heavy, caught in a web of unspoken feelings. Just as we reached the edge of the orchard, I felt a surge of courage. "Clara," I said softly, my heart racing. "Sometimes I wonder if there's more between us." The words hung in the chilly air, echoing against the whispers of the trees, and for a moment, silence enveloped us, both electrifying and nerve-wracking. She turned to me, her expression a blend of surprise and understanding. "I felt it too," she admitted gently. "I didn't know if you would." A wave of warmth washed over me, the tension unraveling like a thread. We paused, standing beneath the canopy of trees, and I reached for her hand. It felt natural, and for the first time it felt like a promise. In that orchard, surrounded by the whispers of the trees, the gentle moonlight blanketing us, we embraced the uncharted territory of our connection. Our laughter intertwined, a quiet elation vibrating in the air. And in that moment, we both understood how beautifully simple it could be. The slow dance of feelings, the warmth of friendship blossoming into something tender and profound. From then on, the world felt different. A brighter shade of gold and green, filled with the soft rustle of leaves and the sweet sound of laughter. The days stretched before us like a canvas, waiting to be painted with our stories, each shared moment a brushstroke adding color to the tapestry we were weaving together. As spring unfurled like a blooming flower, we walked through the orchard, hand in hand, the warmth of our connection carrying us forward. We found ourselves laughing more often, sharing secrets under the twinkling stars. And in quiet moments, we understood the beauty in simply being together. And in the solace of those afternoons, I learned the true essence of companionship, gentle, unhurried, wrapped in warmth. A journey made richer by the quiet strength of two introverted hearts finding their way together. I can almost feel the gentle hum of that time now, the way it settled into my bones like a comfortable sweater, reminding me that sometimes the most beautiful connections begin in the simplest of ways. With the world quieting around us, I can feel myself settling deeper into the warmth of it all. The soft embrace of a memory that feels like home. Now, as I sit quietly on that creaky wicker chair, a sense of gratitude envelops me. The sun has long dipped below the horizon, and the stars have begun to twinkle above, each one a reminder of love blossoming in unexpected seasons. I breathe deeply, drawing in the soothing scents of the night, and as I pull the blanket closer around my shoulders, I let the calm settle in, the world quieting into a gentle lull. The soft rustle of the wind carries my gratitude into the night, and with a final, peaceful sigh, I close my eyes, letting the warmth of those memories wash over me like a tender embrace. And now, our next story. The afternoon sunlight draped lazily through the kitchen window, casting warm patterns on the checkered tablecloth. I could hear the soft patter of rain beginning to fall outside, the gentle rhythm a comforting backdrop to the aroma of freshly baked bread filling the air. Each inhalation brought hints of something sweet, perhaps the cinnamon tucked inside, swirling in with the dough's yeasty warmth. The sound of the clock ticking on the wall punctuated the stillness, marking time in this cozy pocket of the world where nothing felt hurried, and everything seemed to be just as it should be. As I leaned against the counter, the surface cool to touch, I allowed my mind to wander back to the summer afternoons I used to spend here with my family. I often remembered those days as if they were enveloped in a golden hue, where laughter danced lightly in the air, and the echo of simple conversations lingered as pleasantly as the smell of the bread baking. I could almost see my younger self, feet dangling from the high stool, absorbed in the simplest of pursuits, like rolling out dough and sneaking bites of the sweet mixture meant for the filling. But there had also been shadows in that brightness. Those days when a word, a look, or perhaps even a silence, could stretch between us like a chasm. Times when I had felt that thick weight of disconnection with those I loved most. I found myself reflecting on how the warmth of the kitchen could hold even the most complicated of emotions, And in that moment, I felt the gentle tug of nostalgia mixed with a thread of tenderness. I had come to appreciate how all those little moments of warmth could coexist with the tougher ones, shaping who we were as a family. I remembered my brother, Noah, who had often stood beside me, his laughter rolling through the kitchen like a favorite song. His light-hearted jests were woven into the fabric of those afternoons, but there were also times when our worlds seemed to drift apart. The disagreements, the misconceptions, and the misunderstandings had become like lingering autumn leaves that never quite fell away. I could still feel the sharpness of some arguments, the way they had echoed in my heart long after the words had been spoken. I turned my attention back to the bread, kneading it with rhythm, letting the dough slip and slide through my fingers. It was grounding. I remembered how during those disagreements, I often forgot that at our core, we shared a history, a bond that was flexible, if not sometimes fragile. As the rain began to fall more steadily outside, tracing soft paths down the window panes, I found myself marveling at how easily a storm could turn into a gentle sprinkle. Just like people, I mused. Just like us. I recalled that time, only a few months ago, when I had received a small letter from Noah. The kind that arrived unexpectedly, folded neatly, ink slightly smudged. He had written about the changes in his life, the small joys that punctuated his days, new recipes he had tried out, a book that had captured his imagination, and the feeling of warmth from the sunshine peeking through the clouds. It was the kind of letter that made my heart swell and ache all at once. In my response, I had shared my own little moments, those tucked-away treasures that made each day feel complete. As I continued to shape the dough, I thought about our conversations over the phone after that. Each call felt like an unfolding tapestry, fragile and beautiful, and I began to sense tenderly that we were stitching together the moments that had slipped away. I could feel the distance between us melting like butter on warm bread as our laughter began to fill the void that once existed. Stitch by stitch, the sound of the oven door creaking open brought me back to the present. I placed the loaf inside, allowing it to rise, and for a fleeting moment, I thought of all our shared meals, the way we gathered around the table, how conversation flowed easily like the sweet tea my mother often brewed, filling every crevice of our home. The rain continued its soft serenade outside, and I began to think about inviting Noah over for a small gathering. Just the two of us, perhaps. A chance to share a meal once more. To feel the warmth of both the food and the company surrounding us as it used to. I could envision us sitting at the table, caught up in laughter, our memories floating between us like the steam curling from hot mugs. As the loaf began to bake, I found myself leaning against the counter once more, allowing the scent of the bread to wrap around me, drawing in the tranquility of the moment. With each tick of the clock, I could feel something shifting, something gentle yet firm beneath the surface of my thoughts. Maybe it was realizing that all those old echoes of discord could soften into harmony, like the rising bread in the oven. Time slipped away in soft drifts as I began to imagine the conversation we might have. I could hear his voice, a deep baritone, weaving words filled with humor and warmth. And as I envisioned him laughing, the sound lifted like a feather, brushing away the dust that had settled between us over the years. I pictured us reminiscing about those summer afternoons, digging into our shared past, comparing our lives now to the dreams we had once held dear. It felt as if the rain outside had become a part of this hopeful narrative, a gentle cleansing that ushered in a fresh beginning. I thought of how far we had come, yet how far we still needed to go, and it all felt manageable in that quiet, safe space of the kitchen. The oven timer chimed softly, breaking the stillness, as I opened the door and took in the deep golden crust of the bread. The warmth enveloped me, reminding me that some things, like the bonds of family, could be rekindled with a little patience, a sprinkle of kindness, and perhaps the simplest act of breaking bread together once more. And as I settled the bread onto the cooling rack, I felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over me. For the moments past, for the love still present, and for the promise of what was yet to unfold. As I cleaned up the kitchen, Each task became a gentle refrain of hope and connection, as if the very act of preparing the space was an offering of peace to the memories that had once felt heavy. With the kitchen now tidy, I cast one last glance out the window, where the rain had become a soft drizzle, and noticed the clouds beginning to part, revealing streaks of sun that shimmered across the landscape. I smiled softly to myself, imagining those future afternoons when the storm had passed and the sun would shine again. As I turned off the kitchen light, the room darkening around me like a warm embrace, I felt the stillness settle in. The rain had quieted to a mere whisper, the world outside slowing to a gentle lullaby. I took a deep breath, the scent of fresh bread lingering, curling around me like a comforting blanket. In that moment, I knew everything was all right. The past was simply a part of us. The laughter, the bread, the rain, and, ultimately, the promise of connection. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of the kitchen and the sweetness of the moment wrap around me, savoring the peace that nestled in my heart. The world felt manageable, held in a tender balance, and as I opened the door to my dreams, the enduring bond of family remained bright as ever. And that's the last story for tonight. You've traveled a long way to get here, through 5 quiet worlds, 5 small lives, 5 gentle resolutions. Your breathing is slower now. Your body is heavy and warm. There's nothing left to think about. Just the quiet. Just the dark. Just rest. Good night.